A night at the library. I zoned out for a moment as I waited for the light to turn green. I took a brief moment to gaze up and into the sky, where the clouds were beginning to stack upon one another like Legos. So far, it was a regular Tuesday in the middle of June in the town of Vanderville, Maryland. Reason being is because that afternoon my friends Colin, Steve, Frank, Chad, and I were going to hang out at the library and spend a few hours chilling out and enjoying ourselves. I intended on using that time to go on my laptop and get some work done. Colin was likely going to do roughly the same. I had no idea what people like Chad, Steve, and Frank were intending on doing though. But I guess I was about to find out, as just then I found myself pulling into the library parking lot. Colin, Steve, Frank, and Chad were already there waiting for me. I found it quite odd how Chad had already arrived, as he's one to usually be in no rush. The really weird part was how for other times we've been hanging out, like the gym for example, he's always been late and would usually be stumbling out of his brovertible all groggy and such, despite it being like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. All of us knew that Chad was a full-on pumpkin in the AM hours of the day, but you'd think that for someone who loves fitness and who loves working out so much, that he'd be at least semi-energetic for the gym, right? But now that we're meeting at the library of all places, he's up and ready to go, more enthusiastic than ever before. The whole dynamic is pretty weird, but that being said, so is Chad, so I let it slide. Anyway, I stepped outside and met up with everyone in front of the entrance. The summer heat and humidity made it almost sickening to be outside. Luckily, the library which we're about to journey into was graciously powered by a brand new Panasonic 2-ton 5-star Wi-Fi inverter, smart split AC unit. Ready for the brewery brews? Chad asked. Sure am, Colin replied. Got a lot of work to do today, so should be the perfect spot to kinda zone in on the action.
Today, we will enrich our minds with plenty of exquisite knowledge, passed down by the many wise brews from back in the old days. After all, it's vitally important to train our minds, not just our bodies, when it comes to the games,
Chad mentioned.
And besides, being out in all this brew heat tends to make the—
Yeah, man!
Steve interrupted.
Let's just head inside the fucking library. How's the bitch out here?
We all agreed and headed on inside. The library that we were at consisted of 3 floors in total, and the main entrance had us on the middle floor, which is the children's section. And all the children's books, the DVDs are located down there, all that stuff. On top of that were the main front desk, along with some tutoring and study rooms. The floor below was referred to as the senior center for the old heads, It had things such as a coffee lounge or reception room, a room for business meetings, a newspaper lounge, along with a specialized... Yeah, you get the point. Then there was the top floor. This is the floor on which we were intending on spending about 95% of our time on. Up there were the regular selection of books, genres ranging from non-fiction to mystery to realistic fiction. There are numerous chill and relaxing areas with desktops, desks overlooking the trees outside, study rooms, as well as a comfy-looking lounge area that had all sorts of windows. It's quite odd, though, the lounge area. I say that because the mysterious antique rolly armchair sat right in the middle. It's made out of what appeared to be some finely aged Detroit leather, had headrests so whoever sat in it would be completely hidden to others, given that they were facing the other way. Anyway, the 5 of us all went upstairs and took it all in. The ceiling above the main stairwell was made out of all glass, allowing plenty of natural sunlight to illuminate the area. The stairwell was set in the middle of the library with a sort of indoor balcony on top. This meant that you could peer down and see all the way to the bottom floor from the top. The whole height must have been at least 250 feet. This only added to the relaxing and chill atmosphere of the place, although it was a tad unnerving to peek one's head over, if I was being totally honest. Next, we all split up, going to do our own thing for the time being. Colin and I went and found ourselves a spot to work on our laptops. There's one big long desk at the back of the library, close to the lounge. It overlooked the woods down the hill, towards an overgrown and sketchy-looking pond. The 2 of us set up shop and got to work. Chad ultimately decided to go and take a gander at the sports novelty section of all the magazines, as that's what he's into. Steve and Frank went to the tables that had the library's crappy desktops. I highly doubted that those 2 would do anything remotely productive. So I decided to go and see for myself. Not that I cared, but newsflash, I was right. Steve appeared to have hopped on the all-infamous CoolMathGames.com. He's playing a game called Awesome Tanks 2, where you move your cursor around, try and shoot the enemy tanks. Seems like something quite classic for Steve, I thought to myself. Maybe Frank will be doing something at least of little value. I was wrong though. Frank had already conked back his head and was now watching the all-signature movie Cars. Very unsurprising for someone such as Frank to be watching, as he is quite the fond Lightning McQueen obsession. Frank murmured, not so quietly to himself. The librarian shot him a dirty look. But anyway, Steve and Frank were sitting a little ways away from each other, so Steve didn't really hear him as he had headphones in. I was thinking about telling Steve about what Frank was currently watching, but I decided against it because, believe me, if Steve heard word of what Frank was watching, Lightning McQueen, he would not let Frank hear the end of it. He would roast that man so hard that he'd end up the exact same way he likes his marshmallows. Burnt, crispy, and ultimately ruined. Next, I figured that I should probably just leave Steve and Frank alone, as I had my own work to be focusing on. So therefore, I got back to it. The next hour or so was pretty uneventful for the most part. The time was around 4 in the afternoon when I received a buzz from my phone. It was a weather alert for the evening, stating how a severe thunderstorm warning had just been issued for the area. I read more of the warning and decided to check the radar. Sure enough, there were some insane waves of rain coming in from the northwest, likely reaching where we were around 6:30 that evening. Obviously, I didn't pay much attention to it. The library would close at 7 that day, so we kind of all just accepted the fact that we'd be driving home in the rain, but it was whatever. So fast forward another 2 or so hours and it's around 6. It's no longer sunny outside, but overcast. Colin and I could see the wind viciously blowing through the treetops, indicating that the weather app was not lying. Rather, some thunderstorms were indeed on their way in. Both of us had just finished our work and decided that'd be a good idea to head on home before the weather got too crazy. Colin and I put away our laptops and called it a day. We found Chad now sitting at a table, totally engulfed into the latest copy of Sports Illustrated magazine. "You about ready to head out, Chad?" I asked.
Yep,
He replied.
I'd say that the past 3 hours have been quite enriching to the highest extent. I don't know if I can handle the ancient wisdom, though, that my mind has just pursued. But it's quite brulating for the mind games, nonetheless.
"The fuck do you mean, ancient wisdom, Chad? You literally spent the entire time buried in sports novelty mags of all things," Colin said. Colin, Chad, and I then all went to go fetch Steve and Frank. Steve now had his earphones plugged in again and was watching some rap music videos on YouTube. Frank was still watching the Cars movie. I had no idea that that movie was over 3 hours long. Though, as I got a little closer, I was able to get a better look at the screen. That's when I realized he had restarted the movie and was watching it again. He was just sitting there in the flimsy rolly chair, giggling to himself. "Frank? Steve? You guys both about ready?" Colin asked. Steve couldn't hear Colin though, due to him having his earbuds plugged in. Yeah, I guess he had those music videos turned up quite loud, as I could hear the song playing from the other end of the desktop area, bass and everything. I guess Colin and I weren't the only ones who could hear it, because just then the librarian was in the process of making her way over to tell Steve to pipe it down. "Hey, buddy," she said, whilst tapping him on the shoulder.
Man, what now?
Steve replied. "I'm gonna need to tell you to turn that down a bit. The whole library can hear it."
My bad, man. My bad.
"You guys ready to head out?" I said.
Yeah.
Frank replied as he reluctantly turned off his movie, but Steve had other ideas in mind.
The fuck you mean you want to leave, G? It just be getting lit up in here.
"I mean, it's not like we can stay too much longer now," Con replied. "Library closes in like less than an hour."
That be the point, man. Haven't y'all always wanted to have the library all to yourself after hours?
"Steve, we can't just do that. All we'll do is set off some alarm and get the cops called," said Colin.
Come on, man. There ain't even a single camera up in this bitch. We ain't gonna get caught. Besides, if 12 do decide to pull up, we can just dip down the pond.
Steve replied quite convincingly, referring to that sketchy-looking pond down the hill that I mentioned earlier. "I mean, I'm down," I said. Now, I knew deep down that this whole thing would not be a good idea, but I was young and I am always up for a good risky and adventure, something to switch up the routine of daily life. My days have been super boring and repetitive as of recently, so at that time I figured a good old library overnighter would be just what could spice up the summer routine a bit. Besides, Steve was actually right. There was not one single security camera in the entire building. I guess there really isn't really a need for them anyway, considering that it's a library of all places. Fine, said Colin. I guess we can do it. Let's just hide out in the bathrooms until the librarians lock the place up. Just don't do anything dumb, he stated firmly, referring to Steve and Frank in particular. I don't really blame him, as if anyone were to ruin the night and put us all in jeopardy, it'd most definitely be these two. But, unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case.
Yay! Library 24-hour challenge!
Frank squeaked rather loudly. Shh! Shut the fuck up, Frank, I said, shooting him a nasty glare. The librarian looked up from her desk, directly at Frank with suspicion. See, this is exactly what I meant when I said that if anyone were to ruin the night, it'd be one of these two doofuses. Anyway, the plan was set. I texted my dad, letting him know that I was going to spend the night at Steve's. He said it was fine, so we were in the clear. I had a realization, however. When the library closed, I realized that the people closing would still see our cars parked in the parking lot, which would indicate that there's still people inside. I went and told everyone that, and that we needed to move our cars real fast, and to which everyone complied. We went outside and got inside the cars. The first few raindrops of the impending night thunderstorms were just beginning to fall upon us. We all agreed to drive across the street and leave our cars at the nearby grocery store parking lot overnight. Once our cars were parked, we simply walked back across the street and back to the library, which would indeed be closing quite soon. For the rest of the time, we simply looked around at some random books until around 7 on the dot, when the announcement was made over the intercom stating that the library was now closed. We all filed into the men's room and hid in the big stall together. You know, nothing suspicious or anything of that manner, but we did want to be hidden in case of the librarian decided to do any little searches for any after-hour violators. Anyway, we stayed put for a while, and around 7:45, we figured that the coast was probably clear. Our night was on, though little did we know that as of then, deciding to pull this night off would be a huge mistake. We all filed out of the stall and out of the bathroom. The library was obviously dead silent, meaning we were nervous to even breathe to a certain extent. The reason being was because we were still unsure if the librarian was in the building or not. We didn't know. We silently crept through the aisles of books and peered around a corner. The librarian's desk was indeed empty, though that didn't really mean much. For all we knew, after hours could have happened to be the time in which he decided to go around organizing the books on the shelves or whatnot. We didn't really know what to do. There was no way to see for sure if she was truly gone, but luckily, Colin seemed as if he'd come up with a sort of plan, as just then, he ushered us all back into the men's room. Alright guys, he said quietly. Pretty much our best indicator if the librarian is still here or not is if her car is still in the parking lot. There are 2 different parking lots at this library, one in the back and one in the front. Frank, Steve, Chad, you guys remain in the bathroom. I'll check the back lot, and Nick, you check the front one. Alright, seems reasonable, I replied. Colin and I left the bathroom to go and check the parking lots. The 2 of us split up and went to go to the windows that overlooked outside. My task of checking the front lot seemed especially risky, and that was for 2 reasons. One being that I had to creep a considerably farther distance than Colin, as the bathrooms on the top floor are located pretty much on the back corner of the building, hidden behind multiple rows of bookshelves. The second reason being because the front library was where all the desks and book checkout areas were, as well as the stairwell and the main offices. This meant that if the librarian did happen to still be there, chances are that this would be the place where she'd be at. But anyway, I carefully crept my way through the seemingly endless rows of bookshelves until my surroundings opened up. I was now by the book checkout desk, located near the stairs. I knew I shouldn't be out in the open and risk being seen, so quickly, I darted to a sort of study nook that happened to have windows overlooking the entirety of the front parking lot. I felt a slight pit form my stomach though, when I saw that there was not indeed 1, but 2 cars still out there. One was a nicer looking BMW, and the other was an old ratty pickup truck. I got my phone out and shot Colin a message telling him about the 2 cars. He replied saying that the back lot was clear. Next, we agreed to head back to the bathroom and just wait out some more time until at least around 9, as then we knew that it'd actually be dark outside and that whoever was still at the library would likely just want to go home and see their families. I put my phone away and was about to creep my way back to the bathroom when I heard the sound of keys jiggling from the floor beneath me, followed by footsteps heading towards the front door. "Alright, Jim," a woman's voice said. "I'm heading out for the night. See you tomorrow."
"See you, Carol,"
a man replied.
"I should be wrapping up in here soon. Those kids from the reading club really fucked up these pipes the organic way."
"Ew," the woman replied. I then heard her footsteps disappear outside before the door fell shut behind her. I peered out the window one last time and witnessed a middle-aged woman speed walking toward the BMW in the parking lot. She had her umbrella deployed, as it was actually raining outside now, pretty heavily too. That woman must have been the librarian, and the other dude she was speaking to, he must have been the janitor. Anyway, we now knew that the floor we were on was safe, and so we went back to the bathroom to tell others the situation. However, when he opened the door to the men's room, Colin and I were both hit with the all-signature pungent skunk set. And believe me, certainly no skunk. "Oh, Steve, are you fucking serious right now?" Colin exclaimed.
Come on, man, what you talking about? This be the perfect night to get high off my ass.
Steve replied. Steve had now taken out his dab pen, and was some random acquaintance I've given him a few days back. He was in the stall taking some hits. This is evident due to the suspicious smoke that rose up from behind the stall door. Did I mention the smell? You better at least be careful not to set off any smoke detectors, I cautioned.
Yeah, man, right.
He said, finally putting the cart away. Okay guys, so there's a situation right now, said Colin. The librarian left, but the janitor's still here downstairs. He's currently unclogging a toilet from the reading club earlier today, meaning he should be leaving quite soon, hopefully.
Well, I guess that's our call to be a tad bro quiet now and chill out,
Chad said. Well, yeah, I replied. That's what we've been doing here all day. But actually, that begs the question, what are we even gonna do all night? That is a very good question, Colin replied. We're literally locked in, as if we try to go outside an alarm's gonna go off as a result of the door being opened after hours, you know? Yeah, that might actually be a problem, as I don't think any of us have eaten anything since this morning, I said.
How about we all bruise your way into the study room so we can plan out our bro night?
Chad suggested.
Also, I think that Nick Bro is on something. A bro environment as studious and chill as the Broberry will likely tend to make us all a bit famished. We'll be needing some grub to refill our mind gains after a long night of studying ancient wisdom now.
I had to admit it, but Chad was actually right. One way or another, we'd need to find a way to sneak out and back into this building so we could run to a gas station or something to grab us some food and drinks. We were all starving. The library did not have any vending machines, and we knew that this night wouldn't be nearly as worthwhile without, say, some Monster Energies, for example, meaning that this is something we'd have to all think about doing sooner rather than later. We all spent roughly the next hour and a half huddled in the bathroom watching Netflix on Steve's phone. Once the time was around 9, we decided to see if the coast was clear. Colin cautiously ran to the front window to see if the janitor had yet left. Once Colin came back, we were all more than relieved to hear that he did. It was such a relief, in fact, because standing in that bathroom for over an hour was brutal. Once we left the bathroom, the first thing we all realized was that most of the lights in the entire library had been cut, save for a few emergency lights. This made the entire place a little more creepy, but at the same time, only added to the chill vibe, especially considering how atrocious the weather was outside, as thunder and lightning were now happening all too often. Next, we went throughout each and every single section of the building, just to be 100% certain that there were no cameras. I decided to go and check the very downstairs portion of the library where the senior center was at. There were no cameras, but going through the lower parts of the building alone in the dark was disturbing to say the least. Unlike the top floor, which at least had a few lights still on, the bottom floor was pitch black, meaning I had to use my phone flashlight to navigate. I kept thinking that something was going to jump out at me at any moment, but luckily nothing did. While I was down there, I also happened to notice a random door that was cracked open with a door stopper, leading to outside. I guess the librarian or janitor forgot to shut it up when they closed. This was perfect. This meant we could get back inside when we made our snack and drink run, without setting off any security alarms. I sprinted back upstairs to tell the others about it, and we were all hyped. Our night was finally on. Woo! Steve shouted. Here, I'm gonna go and get this snack run over with right now, I told everyone as I pulled up the notes app on my phone. Everyone tell me what you want from the gas station. Everybody then listed me their food and drink requests. They were spot on typical for the people in which I was with. Here were the exact items. Colin requested an oatmeal granola bar with a Monster Energy, the ultraviolet flavor. I simply decided to get a white Monster. Chad decided on a triple chocolate protein shake. Robert Irving Fit Crunch protein bar, a For Real milkshake, the mint chocolate chip flavor as well. Frank decided on some chocolate covered pretzels, sour trolley worms, and 3 white Monsters. And finally, Steve wanted to get some pork rinds with the regular Monster flavor. Frank, are you sure that 3 Monster Energies is a good idea? Colin questioned. I know how you get when you drink those.
You really know what you're talking about, Kevin?
Man, I want to come with you.
Said Steve. Fine by me, I replied. And so it was set. Steve and I went downstairs and cracked the door that I found open earlier. Unfortunately, we got absolutely soaked in the deluge as we made our way to the car in the grocery store parking lot. It was whatever, though. We hopped in the car and drove down the street.
Right here, man.
Steve exclaimed, pointing to a lit-up Royal Farms gas station. I pulled into the parking lot and parked before we both walked inside. The classic bell rang as we pushed the door open. Some cheesy music played over the speakers as well. We were the only people in there, even though it wasn't even that late yet. I don't know. I guess that the rain had something to do with it. As of the current moment, there really was no employee manning the checkout area. It didn't really matter though, as Royal Farms is known for having a self-checkout type system anyway. The two of us spent the next few minutes getting everybody's food and drink items before going to pay. I don't know if it was a coincidence or not, because just then, the cashier working the night emerged from the back. Good evening, boys, he said. Whoa, I said. Wait just one fucking minute now. It was the creepy clerk. That's right. Same guy from the weekend we spent at Laurel Highlands this past winter, from the Nights Inn and all. I had absolutely no idea how he managed to land himself a job at the Banderville Royal Farms of all places. I also had no idea how he seemingly knew that we'd be out and about on that very night. How did you get a job here? I demanded.
Oh, you know, boys, I'm always out here trying to make a little bit of extra cash for my family and all by working here at the Royal Farms. And I figured that on boring rainy nights like tonight, I may as well pick up an extra shift or two to work overnight. I'm talking the night shift, boys,
the creepy clerk replied. His voice was quite soft and high-pitched for a grungy man who appeared to be in his 50s. Seemed he almost had some sort of SoCo Cali surfer accent in a way, if that's what you want to refer to it as. He wore his all-signature fit of muddy hiking boots, white socks that went up past his knees, 80s-style gym trainers that revealed his hairy thighs, along with a green denim jacket that was unbuttoned to reveal a white wife-stained wife-beater, which also allowed his potbelly to protrude outward, so it was visible to the naked eye. He looked at us with some creepy eyes, too. You know, the same kind from Laurel Highlands this past winter. Listen, man, I said sturdily, we are not going to be putting up with you and your shenanigans tonight. Just leave us alone so we can check out our items and get out of here.
Yeah, Ryan, you be that pervert ass dude with the mystery box and shit.
Steve mentioned. Believe me, I unfortunately knew exactly what Steve meant when he was referring to the creepy clerk's mystery box. I don't want to talk about it though, as it was from the Laurel Highlands trip. There's all good reason that we've been trying to forget about it. Anyway, Steve and I tried to hurry up and scan off all the items and get out of there as fast as possible, but the creepy clerk had other ideas stirring in his brain.
Come on now, boys,
he said convincingly.
Nothing too much like rainy nights like these now, is there? I'll tell you boys what, I will be working the night shift tonight, so if you boys always tend to get tad lonely after hours now, if you boys want, feel free to join me in the back, and I'll show you the perfect spot to record our bond together as special boys.
No, I reprimanded. We are getting out of here right now. My friends and I are spending the night at the library down the street tonight, and we had to get back to them. We are not wasting our time with you, nor with your little gimmicks. I had made a mistake, a grave mistake. I, in my annoyed state, had just blurted out the exact location of where we'd all be on that night. It was too late now, though, to take back my words. Just as I mentioned that, we were staying at the library. The creepy clerk's face returned to the one with the same creepy eyes again. He then walked backwards, back into the room where he came out of initially, never ceasing to take off his gaze from Steve and I. Quite creepy. Steve and I were both shook.
Come on, man, let's get back to the fucking library.
Steve and I took the snacks and hopped back into the car. We drove back down the road to the library next. We didn't bother parking in the grocery store parking lot this time, though, as there was simply no need. We were all going to have to make sure that we get out of there long before the morning librarian clocked in for a shift, just so we wouldn't get busted. It was still raining harder than ever by the time Steve and I pulled into the library. Only now, thunder and lightning were minutely occurrences. The two of us raced back around and quietly slid open the door and propped it back open. We made our way back upstairs to find the others. Frank, Colin, Chad were all chilling up in the lounge area in some beanbags. Kinda weird how they're all just sitting there in the pitch black whilst talking.
So what trouble is?
Frank squealed as he leaped up from his beanbag, lazy boy style, and ran to Steve, who was carrying him.
Get your fat ass away from me, bus man. I'm finna shove these snacks the way it dished my crack out back in the hood.
I knew deep down that Steve had actually ever lived in those places. He's always known for making up fake personas to try and put it on a tough man's front. All of us knew that it's usually just best to play along with his facade, though Frank is the only one to sometimes call him out.
You never knew this, Steve. You lived here your whole life. Back in preschool, when we used to go on playdates together.
Alright, that's it.
Steve replied angrily.
These trolley worms be mine there, bus man.
Steve then viciously ripped open the bag of Frank's sour trolley worms and began munching away. Frank cried, now trying to jump up and snatch the bag out of Steve's hand, but Steve held him out of his reach. I don't know what had gotten into Frank at that moment, as he then went on to lick Steve in the face.
Bus man, you asking for it?
Steve shouted. Just then, Steve and Frank began wriggling around on the freshly vacuumed carpet of the library, and so Colin and I had to intervene. Hey, guys, now is not the time for this. Now is not the time at all, Colin said sternly. He was right, and Chad too seemed to agree as well.
That's right, Bruce. This night in the Burberry is supposed to be chill and brew lightning night of snacks and mind games. We should all get along so we get back to studying ancient wisdom.
Chad's right, I added. Let's just eat our food and drink our drinks in peace. After that, we can find something fun to do here. We need to keep a low profile, though, so we don't get caught. And so it was settled. The next half hour simply involved us all sitting in comfy chairs and beanbags in a circle around the chill lounge area. Frank put on a headlamp around a mysterious gallon of milk to act as a sort of lantern in a way. I had absolutely no idea how he got that milk gallon, as it's something in which he previously didn't have, let alone the headlamp. Next, Steve began playing some uncatchy music on his phone whilst the rest of us ate. He then went on to open his bag of rinds.
Man, with these pork rinds, I'm finna become like the Grim Reaper in this bitch. I'm talking about the manhunt, that is.
Steve said. Is that what we're doing next? Colin asked.
Fuck yeah, man. Manhunt be the perfect way to get lit in the library. Besides, it would be perfect to burn off all the energy from these pork rinds, gee.
And so it was set. We would all take our time finishing our food and monster energies before dishing out the rolls for manhunt. But for the time being, we were all just relaxing in the lounge part of the library. It was quite cozy and all with the thunderstorms outside. The lounge area had all glass walls and all glass ceiling as well, making it almost feel like you were in the storm in a way. The monster energies tasted amazing, and would be perfect fuel for the upcoming game of manhunt. Probably better than Steve's pork rinds, which I couldn't really imagine being all too good. But yeah, we finished our food and drinks, and then got to the game.
Ew, that protein shake sure did the spot for the mind games,
Chad mentioned. Chad, I don't think that's how it works, said Colin.
Man, I'll seek first while y'all going hard. I'm ending this game practically within seconds. Especially people like Buzzman blowing y'all's cover.
Steve said. And it was on. Steve was it, and the rest of us went to hide. We had the entire library to use, meaning there were plenty of sneaky little corners to go and hide in. Steve would count to a minute before coming out after us. The rest of us all went to go and hide in different spots, as I, for example, simply hid upstairs behind some bookshelves. My plan wasn't really to hide like that, only remain unseen. I figured I could keep track of where Steve was, and just move around so he didn't catch me or see me. Colin would roughly do the same. Frank and Chad, however, weren't really feeling all too energetic, I guess, as they went to go hide in some more sedentary places, if that's what you want to call them. For example, Frank went to hide under the desktop computer tables. I don't know how observant people like Steve were, but to me, Frank was in full and complete view. All it would take was for Steve to scan his phone flashlight on those desktops, and Frank would be busted. Chad, on the other hand, at least put a little bit more effort into his hiding. He went downstairs somewhere. Don't know where to exactly, but guess we have to ask him later. Anyway, Steve obviously began by half-effortedly scanning through the rows of bookshelves, as he most likely wouldn't actually expect to see anybody hiding there. I took note of this and made a dash to get out of sight. When Steve moved on, I witnessed him again head for downstairs. It was weird how he did this, as he hadn't yet cleared all of the top floor yet, unless Chad had yawned or something, therefore attracting Steve's attention. Steve, however, didn't get downstairs before Frank made a quick but noticeable peep from underneath the desktops. I could then faintly hear him laughing to himself. Quietly. but frantically. And that was that. Steve immediately dashed over to where the desktops were and caught Frank red-handed, dragging him out by his collar. Wasn't very successful at this though, as Frank is simply too chubby to be moved by skinny boy strength. Steve rather obnoxiously exclaimed.
But man, I know for a fact that your bitch ass me first get caught.
You, Steve. He's wanted to get caught on purpose. He was never taking his things that seriously anyway. But also happening there with colonies.
Frank explained. It took him like 30 seconds to say this whole sentence.
Really? Man, where is he?
Steve replied eagerly. Frank then pointed over to a large flower pot in which I guess Colin was hiding behind. Just then I heard Colin faintly whisper to himself, "Shit, really, Frank?" Just like that, Colin too was busted. Frank piped. That wasn't good. I tried to make a dash for the bathrooms before Steve and Colin got to the bookshelves, but it's no use. Me getting to the bathrooms meant venturing out into plain sight, and yeah, that's what got me caught. Well played, I guess, I said to Colin and Steve. Yep, Colin replied. Now we just gotta find Chad.
I don't know where he is, man,
Said Steve. How about you, Nick? Colin asked me. I think he went downstairs. That's what I heard from him earlier. The exact location is something I don't know, though. Maybe you can give him that question over to Captain Snitchy Snitch instead, I replied. Yeah, Frank, why did you blow Nick and I's locations? Colin angrily asked.
Wait, guys. You get mad at me. You have to stay loyal to Steve. He shouldn't have hit me first and hitting the whole team.
That's right, best friend.
Replied Steve.
You were this close to get what your bitch ass deserves as well. A good old slap in the booty hand.
Yo, Steve, chill, I said.
My bad, man. My bad. I was trying to prove a point. That's all. Now, let's go find Chad, man.
The four of us raced downstairs to go and get Chad as he had won the game. Chad, you won! Colin shouted, but he received no response, only silence. We all began exploring downstairs for a little while longer, looking for where Chad could possibly be. However, it wasn't until we were searching the area by the cracked open door exit that we noticed something that gave us quite the clever clue. You see, by that cracked open exit door there happened to be a rack of umbrellas for people to borrow as it was raining and such. Well, yeah, it was still pouring outside, and one of said umbrellas just happened to be missing from the rack.
He's outside, man,
Said Steve. Chad! I called out into the rain. Still no response. Man, I guess he must be pretty far from the building. Let's just call him. I have absolutely no idea how he's that crazy to go out into that kind of weather. Chad hates the rain. Yeah, calling him is a good idea, replied Colin. Colin then whipped out his phone and opened up the Snapchat app. He then used it to give Chad a FaceTime call. It took Chad a minute to answer, but once he did, we were all not so surprised to find out, however, that he was no longer in the library. Rather, we saw distinct 1950s-style Detroit leather seats behind him, whose usually perfect blonde swoosh was now a complete rat's nest. We were then brought to awareness of where Chad was really hiding. We all raced to look out the window, and overlooking the front parking lot, sure enough, our suspected hiding spot, quote-unquote, was now confirmed upon confirmation of a sleek red vehicle with headlights sitting out in the parking lot. It was the Pervertible, Chad's all-signature whip.
What's going on, Bruce?
Chad asked. We could barely understand him, since he was on a whole new level of groggy.
Blueberry in the manhunt?
Chad, why are you outside the library? Colin demanded.
Oh, well, you see, bro, I was hiding in the executive brew class business lounge till I heard something spooky, and I didn't want anything interfering with the mind games, so I figured it'd be best of interest to wait this round out until we bros clear the building.
Chad explained. Chad, the building's fine. There's no one in here besides us. We already confirmed that earlier. And don't even go on to claim that the library is haunted, 'cause it's not, Colin told him. So you're coming back in here, right? I asked.
Well, bro, that routine shake I had earlier, will I get the mind games all settled in, and my brain needs rest so I can rest to repair my mindseps. Get it, bros? Mindseps? But anyway, if we're talking in reality of knowing how to perform the perfect home run during the home of the football game, which I do, then I think it'd be best to spend the rest of the night in the whip.
Chad explained. He sounded like a complete pothead. Well, good night then, I guess, Colin told him. Want to know what I can't believe about Chad sometimes? Colin asked. What's that? I replied. It's like whenever we go out and do something with him, Chad always seems to find a way to chicken out. Even in an air-conditioned library he bails. Yeah, I guess that's just Chad, I replied. I knew that people like Steve and Colin were a bit suspicious of how Chad oftentimes behaves, but I simply decided to dismiss it. Chad is always claiming to be in the gym and working on his football skills, so I'm sure he gets very tired after a long day once nighttime rolls around, and people like him need their rest. Anyway, now that Chad is out of the picture, the rest of us simply decided to call Manhunt off and just relax in the lounge area upstairs. As we were on our way up the stairs, however, we heard the faint sound of a toilet flushing, along with chubby-sounding footsteps trying to hurriedly race to the other side of the room. However, it is obvious that they weren't fast by any means. We immediately got scared and rushed to look outside the window to see if some midnight librarian was there for whatever reason. We saw 2 cars in the parking lot, but they were not belonging to any employee that we knew of. One car was a blue minivan, and the other one was a strangely familiar 70s style Ford Ruster. Colin and I both looked at each other with great concern in both of our eyes, and for good reason. We all raced back up to the top floor of the library as fast as physically possible. We began to run for the lounge area, but as soon as we even looked over at that area, it seemed that someone had already beaten us to it. The massive rolly chair with the 2 tall headrests was now on top of a massive stack of books, so that the chair was like 5 feet in the air. The chair was spun around backwards, facing away from us, but we could tell that someone was sitting in it, due to the faint but enthusiastic humming sound coming from it as well. It sounded like they were humming the all-infamous Greensleeves, composed by Henry VIII for his beloved sweetheart back in the old English days. We were able to catch a better grasp of who the infiltrator was whenever the lightning outside flashed, illuminating their entire silhouette. The chair obviously covered most of their body, but distinct and obvious features like crazy hair and a triple chin were indeed prime giveaways. Someone there? Colin called out. I had my suspicion on who this mysterious figure sat in the chair might be, but it turns out that I didn't need to ponder any longer, as just then, the figure spun around swiftly. It was no one other than Herbert Ernie himself. I had absolutely no idea how he knew we'd all be at the Vanderville Library that night, but thinking back to who Steve and I encountered at the Royal Farms, I think I might know how Herbert would have found out. Herbert said, his voice is all weird and gurgly.
So I see you both decided to show up for the show now.
The what now, Herbert? You aren't even allowed to be here. What in the world are you talking about? Colin demanded.
Well, the book Underworm Clement Knight, of course.
Herbert piped in response. The sheer levels of narcissism in his voice was super cringe and cheesy to listen to.
It's been popping lately, but we're always looking for new members to induct on it. My name is Scholar Ernie. Here's my short honor duty to make sure that the precious knowledge of this library only gets shared with true honeyworms only.
No, Herbert, Colin exclaimed. Whatever this whole Ernie worm stuff is, leave us out of it. How in the world do you even know he'd be at the library tonight?
Huh?
Herbert shouted.
You kidding? Are still in the neighborhoods of the most charming scholar of the century. Sorry, only committed honeyworms can ask for my precious knowledge.
Herbert looked absolutely ridiculous. He wore a pair of too tight corduroy pants with a pair of flip-flops. His toenails are over 3 inches long. On his torso, he wore a brown button-up vest with a checkered turtleneck sweater underneath, the turtleneck feature causing his pale triple chin to hang loosely around it. His potbelly was ginormous. It was almost the size of your average nightstand. I had no idea how he was even able to fit inside the chair to begin with. He held a stack of books in his hand and wore a monocle over his crazy eyes. The hair was the craziest part of all, though. He had a tall and puffy afro-like style that had an even taller part that stuck up and hung in front of his face, like that of an anglerfish. Frank squealed, his voice going extra high-pitched. Of course, Frank, of all people, would be the one to want to do this. He would claim that it's only a joke, but with Frank, you never really know.
It will never forget. That is a wonderful choice. But to prove that you are true anywhere, you must pass the indoctrination test.
What is it?
Frank asked.
A question, Frankie. You must check out my full guidebook on being anywhere, which I will give you from my hands now. Then you must go downstairs and check it out, as well as pay anywhere fee. 1 pair of pants. Downstairs, you will meet my buddy, the creepy librarian, to teach you about some important lessons of being anywhere.
We all followed Frank downstairs to the main floor to go in and meet the creepy librarian. Herbert waited back in the upstairs lounge area. Once we made it downstairs, we noticed that there was now one light turned on compared to as before. It was one of those old metal desk lights that you see in antique shops. Behind that desk sat another leather rolly chair with a too-tall headrest. Just then, a voice spoke to us.
Nice now. Just what Chief said. Some special boys. Good evening, boys.
The person said as they spun their rolly chair around in one swift motion, whilst putting their feet up on the desk. "Oh, no, Colin exclaimed. It was the creepy clerk, as the night librarian. I now knew that this was how Chief, aka Herbert, found out about us being here.
Seems like some special boys decided to come on down here for the book club initiation now.
The creepy clerk said. He no longer wore the 80s style gym trousers and denim jacket like he did at the Royal Farms, though. Rather now, he was in nothing more than lingerie.
Oh, fuck that, fam!
Steve exclaimed. I don't blame him. No, I shouted. We're not interested with you and Herbert's little schemes. And Frank, you are not giving him those pants. You are not joining that club.
Real cute.
Frank disappointingly said. I kind of felt bad for Frank as he seemed quite upset, although childish. Though, we had bigger problems in our hand, though, to worry about than Frank's feelings. The creepy clerk had seemed to have put his imaginary thinking cap on, as he began spewing out some new suggestions.
Oh, don't worry now, Frankie boy,
He said.
We can still let you in that club now. Just come on outside to the forester. There, I can show you all around as we corner our bond together, special boys. We wouldn't want to miss out on the laying down on them goodies now, would we?
Just then, we all looked down and saw that the creepy clerk held an expired weenie in his hand. Colin and I both knew that this was a code red situation when it came to people such as the creepy clerk. Everybody run, Colin shouted. We did just that. We ran back upstairs and into a sort of study space in the front of the library before hiding in the shadows. This is a good hiding spot, as it was on the opposite end of the library from where the lounge area was, back where Herbert is. Though, from what we could see, Herbert was actually no longer in his chair. Though, just then, 2 figures came upstairs onto our floor. It was no one other than Herbert Ernie and the creepy clerk.
What do you say we do now, Chief?
The creepy clerk inquired.
You search the bookshelves, and I will search the bathrooms,
Herbert replied. Next, Herbert went to go and search the bathrooms. Meanwhile, the creepy clerk went and began searching each and every aisle of the bookshelves. He now had his all-signature 1950s style bulky yellow flashlight out, so as to provide him with some extra light when searching for us.
Yoo-hoo. Come on up, boys. I thought some special boys were always down for the laying down of the goodies.
The creepy clerk said as he searched. And that was the last thing we remembered from that night. Next thing we knew, we were waking up from our deep slumber with sunlight pouring through the window beside us. I went to sit up and almost hit my head on some random metal poles. What the? I said to myself. That's when I realized that there were 2 sleeping cots set up beside us. On those cots were 2 people sleeping. Herbert Ernie was one of them. He was curled up in a tight, roly-poly-like ball, still wearing the cheesy librarian's outfit from the previous night. On the other cot was the creepy clerk. His entire body, except for his head, was covered in a massive, thick wool cabin blanket with things such as snowflakes, moose, and pine trees on it. I checked my phone in panic to see that the time read 7:30 in the morning. The library opened over half an hour ago. Herbert said as he slowly awoke. The creepy clerk was waking up as well.
We're relaxing the library, lads.
That's right now, boys.
the creepy clerk added.
Now, how about we celebrate the night with some special bowly pancakes at IHOP?
That's the brilliant idea, Creepy Clerk. It will be on the house.
We didn't have time for IHOP though, as the police, along with the morning librarian, were now standing over us with their hands on their hips. Next thing we knew, we were all being escorted out of the building in handcuffs. The whole next few hours felt like one big blur. We were all taken to the police station and were subject to questioning. And that was that. After hours of intense interrogation, the police had made up their mind. Herbert and the creepy clerk were the real culprits. The rest of us were let off the hook and were allowed to go home. Let's just say that it'd be a while since we decided to pull some sort of risky all-nighter anytime in the near future. We all simply went home traumatized from the previous night with that whole night book club and all. That then concludes a night at the library.